You can put in thousands of hours of effort into getting better at trading, but if you don't direct your energy to the right place, it will be a waste of time. After making over $100 million trading and mentoring traders ranging from complete beginners to some of the best traders on Wall Street, I've noticed something surprising. The traders who improve the fastest aren't necessarily the smartest or always the hardest working either. What separates them is that they identify what's actually holding them back. Meanwhile, most traders spend years solving problems they don't have. The problem isn't effort. The problem is they're not working on their main constraint. So here's how to identify your real bottleneck, because once you fix the right constraint, everything else starts to click. One of the reasons why trading is so difficult is that the feedback is incredibly noisy. If you're a golfer and your putting is terrible, it's obvious what needs work. If you're a basketball player and you can't shoot, the weakness is staring you in the face. But with trading, it isn't always so obvious, which is why I'm going to present to you what I view to be the 4 main constraints: edge, execution, opportunity, and risk. Let's start with edge, because this is where most newer traders spend the majority of their career and never progress past. An edge-constrained trader simply has not found a repeatable way to make money yet. Maybe they've never been profitable, or maybe they're constantly jumping between strategies before gathering enough data to know whether anything actually works. Whatever the specific situation, the underlying issue is the same. They do not have enough evidence that their approach has positive expectancy. So how do you know if you're edge constrained? The biggest signs are inconsistency, negative P&L for periods over a few weeks, and constantly searching for the next trading strategy. If somebody asked you why your setup works, could you answer with data, or would you answer with opinions? Do you know where the setup performs best, where it struggles, and what market conditions favor it? Many traders cannot answer those questions. The solution to this, it's research. You need to be backtesting, brainstorming new strategies, and building a playbook like I described in this video. When I was developing as a trader, I spent thousands of hours reviewing charts, replaying markets, and studying historical examples while building my playbook. Edge is pattern recognition that you build through repetition. If you're edge constrained, stop trying to learn 50 things at once. Pick a setup, build a playbook around it, gather screenshots, and start to track the statistics. You then want to study and refine it if it shows promise. The solution to an edge problem is evidence. Now let's assume you've done that. You've built a playbook, you have data, and you know your setups work, and everything supports that you have positive expectancy. This is where the second constraint often appears: execution. Execution constrained traders are some of the most frustrated people in the industry because they usually know that what they're doing should be working, but they haven't refined their system or psychology enough to execute in a way that is positive expected value. I've seen traders spend 6 months looking for a new strategy when the strategy they already had was perfectly fine. We'd sit down together and review the trades. The setup was profitable, the data supported it, yet the results were mediocre because the trader could not consistently follow the process. Every time a trade appeared, they ended up drifting away from their rules. Then they blamed the strategy rather than their execution. This is also the category where psychology starts to matter a lot more. Traders begin to blame their discipline and willpower, thinking they need to rely on their emotions, when most effectively executing one's system comes down often to better systems. The best traders I know don't rely on feeling disciplined. They build routines that make the discipline easier. So how do you know if you're execution constrained? If your playbook is profitable, but your results aren't. If your best trades look exactly like the setups in your playbook, but your worst trades are completely outside of it. If you're constantly saying, I knew what I should have done, but I didn't do it. Those are all giant clues. Now the solution. It's building a better process. This includes clearly defining your entries and exits, creating checklists and rules, as well as protecting your psychology and making sure you are in a good headspace. And if unable to do so as a discretionary trader, that is when you start to explore how to potentially automate your trading. A huge part of this constraint is also making sure that you are physiologically and psychologically in the best headspace. You need great sleep, minimal outside distractions, and a balanced headspace to execute at your best. This is where that daily report card becomes so powerful. Every day should end with an honest assessment of what you did well and where you deviated. The goal is not perfection, it's just consistency in your process. If you know what you should do but aren't doing it, your next 100 hours probably shouldn't be spent researching new strategies. They should be spent directly improving your execution. Once traders develop both edge and execution, a completely different bottleneck often appears: opportunity. An opportunity-constrained trader already has an edge, and they can execute it reasonably well. Their problem is that they simply don't have enough chances to deploy their edge. Imagine owning an incredible business with only 3 customers. The product is not the issue, distribution is. I experienced versions of this throughout my own career. Early on, the goal was simply becoming profitable. Later, the question became how to find more situations where my edge could be applied. Could I expand to trade different products, different timeframes? Could I build scanners that identified more opportunities? Or could I develop adjacent playbooks built on similar principles? Many profitable traders miss this stage because optimization feels more productive sometimes. They spend hours trying to improve a great setup by a tiny amount. Meanwhile, their real issue is that they're only finding a handful of opportunities each month. Improving a setup by 5% is useful, but finding 10 times more opportunities to execute it can completely change your career. So how do you know if you're opportunity constrained? You have profitable playbooks, you have discipline, and you have consistency, yet your growth has plateaued because there simply are not enough trading setups. You spend more time waiting than executing. The solution is expansion. Better scanners, better alerts, more markets, more products, more environments where your edge applies. One of the biggest shifts in my own career came when I stopped asking, how do I make this setup slightly better? And started asking, where are all the places that I can apply this edge? If your setup works, the next question should always be how to find 10 times as many opportunities to deploy it. Then we arrive at the final constraint, risk. Myself included, and many of the traders I've mentored struggle with risk. They have great edge and make some money, but they can never properly size their trades and make it count. Or on the other end of the spectrum, they are gunslingers that always aim for the moon, risking blowing up in the process. For both of these types of traders, their issue is risk. The market is always unforgiving when it comes to risk. It doesn't care how talented you are. It doesn't care how smart you are. If you take too much risk and suffer a catastrophic drawdown, none of those things matter. Longevity is one of the greatest advantages a trader can have because longevity gives your edge time to compound. I've watched traders become obsessed with maximizing returns while completely ignoring survivability. Then one expected event would erase months or years of progress. The irony is that most of these traders already had enough edge to build extraordinary careers. Their biggest obstacle wasn't finding more upside. It was protecting what they already had. So how do you know if you're risk constrained? On one side of the spectrum, your P&L swings are enormous. Your drawdowns are larger than they should be. And you have incredible months followed by devastating ones. You often find yourself saying, if I had just sized smaller, I'd still be in great shape. Or on the other side of the spectrum, you're risk constrained if your P&L has been flat for years and you're not reaching your potential or your goals. What if you haven't had a best trade or a best day in ages? Those are all signs that risk has become the bottleneck. The solution is to become more intentional with your risk and identify where you are on that spectrum of risk taking. You then want to take intentional actions to move closer to optimal. One trick I urge traders to do is pre-assign risk levels based on the quality of the trade. Then each day grade yourself on whether you risked appropriately based on those predetermined risk amounts. That works whether you're a gunslinger or you're more conservative. What's fascinating about these 4 constraints is that they form a hierarchy. If you don't have edge, nothing else matters very much. Edge always comes first. If you have an edge though, but can't execute it, finding more opportunities won't solve the problem. If you have edge and execution, but very few opportunities, risk probably isn't your primary bottleneck. As traders improve, the bottleneck moves. The thing holding you back today may be completely different from the thing holding you back 3 months or 3 years from now. This is why generic trading advice can be so dangerous. One trader tells you to focus on psychology, another tells you to focus on research. One says you should trade less, another says you should trade more. They're not necessarily wrong, they're simply solving different constraints for different traders at different points in their career. Advice only works when it matches the problem you're actually facing. Whenever I mentor traders, I am constantly asking them the same question. If we could only fix one thing over the next 6 months, what would create the biggest improvement in your results? That is often the key constraint in where your focus belongs. Not because the other problems don't matter, of course they do, but because solving the biggest bottleneck creates the greatest return on your effort. Most traders never slow down long enough to answer that question honestly. Instead, they stay busy avoiding the issue or doing the work that feels more comfortable. Meanwhile, the real problem remains untouched. They spend years climbing a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Before you watch another video or trade another day, ask yourself, what is the single constraint that is most limiting my growth as a trader right now? Because once you answer that honestly, the next steps become dramatically more obvious. The noise disappears and the path forward becomes clear. And for the first time, all of that hard work that you're putting in starts moving you in the right direction. If you're serious about getting better at trading and you need help identifying your constraint or solving it, don't forget to check out my trading course filled with hundreds of videos of content to fast track your career. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.